So, you've just bought yourself a new polytunnel and you're wondering, where in the name of God do I get started? And if you are, you're going to want to stick around. So I'll just start off by saying that the method I'm using and the layout that I'm using is not for everybody. It's not going to suit everybody, but this is what I'm doing. So with the two greenhouses that I have beside me here, I've done differently. What I've done is, because they're only 10 foot wide, I've put two raised beds either side and a pat straight through the middle. Whereas here, I'm just going to be doing the no dig method, and I'm not going to be doing any timber raised beds, because with this size, God knows what you'd be paying for that amount of timber. So as you can see, the first thing I've got already started with is putting down cardboard. And getting massive sheets of cardboard like this is a lot handier than picking all these small boxes, because you're going to be all day putting them down, especially if you've got a big open space like this. The best places to find big sheets of cardboard like this would be hardware stores, bicycle shops, anything like that. And if you're getting them from spots like that, of course, make sure you're removing any of the sellotape or anything like that, because plastic is not going to go anywhere. It's just going to sit there. So this is the first step. Now, why do I even put cardboard down in the first place? Your cardboard is going to basically suppress all the weeds and the grass that's here. Zoomies, go! Watch it! Okay. So once you've all the place covered with your cardboard, the next step is obviously your compost. So I'm going to just explain a little bit about the compost that I'm using and why I'm using it. So this is mushroom compost. It's mainly going to be mushroom compost. I'm probably going to mix a little bit of other compost through it. You don't have to, but I just want to make sure everything is ready for the tomatoes, all the really hungry plants, cucumbers and stuff like that. So what is mushroom compost? So every mushroom farm is going to differ a little bit, but it is a byproduct of mushroom farming, and it's mainly going to be straw. It can be hay in it as well. There's going to be your mushroom substrate, so it's one really good way of adding in your mycelium into your growing space straight away. And sometimes there can be horse manure and poultry manure in it as well. So my whole garden here is probably no more than 1/4 of an acre, and I filled a rigid slurry of mushroom compost in this 1/4 of an acre last year, and I grew everything. I grew flowers, I grew all the different vegetables, the greenhouse vegetables, I grew potatoes, fruit. Potatoes absolutely loved the mushroom compost as well, because potatoes absolutely love straw, so they done really well in it as well. But I have to say, everything done really well in the mushroom compost. Some people are going to be afraid of what they're spraying in the mushroom farms, and honestly, I wouldn't worry too much about it. This spot where I get mine, it's not certified organic, right? But I have to say, when I did put it down, the worms were really quick to move into it, and the mushrooms continued to stay growing as well in it. So that tells me a lot. It tells me that it's pretty clean, and that's okay for me. So one really easy way to make sure your rows are nice and straight is to use 2 timber boards either side, and keep them pulled down then every time you're putting in a wheelbarrow. So another big reason why I did go for the mushroom compost is because of how cheap it is. So I'll give you an example. Last year when I bought the rigid slurry, I paid your man €200 to go collect it for me and deliver it to me, and I paid €60 for the compost itself. So you're not going to get any cheaper than that. This year I got a fella for this tunnel. I got a fella with a 7.5 ton truck, and I paid €150 altogether. So it's a great way of getting so much compost for very little money. And of course, if you have your own transport, or if you have your own little car trailer, you're going to be saving a lot of money. So this is the loose mushroom compost that I have, and what I'm doing now is I'm just after getting a lovely few pallets of compost straight from Quick Crop. Quick Crop is a great Irish company and they stock so many different things, but I've got two different types of compost here. So this is the first one, which is EnviroGrind, and what this is a mixture of green and fish waste, and as you can see, this stuff is just black gold. I have to wear gloves because it is smelly, so it's very strong. It's actually recommended to mix in with a different compost, so because it's quite strong. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm mixing the mushroom compost in with the EnviroGrind, and here is another different one I'm after getting. It's their polytunnel and greenhouse mixture, and this is a great blend as well. It has added seaweed and it has poultry manure pellets into it as well, so it's a lovely mixture as well. You don't need to mix in with another compost, you can just use it straight as it is. So yeah, that is what's going into the new polytunnel. So going to have a lot of enriched compost. There's going to be a lot of happy plants in there. So I'm going to explain a little bit about why I'm actually using this method, the no dig method, and I'm going to try and explain as simply as I can. So basically, when you're tilling the soil, what happens is you're going to start disrupting all the natural microorganisms, the beneficial microbes in the soil, all your mycelium, that network of mycelium underground that gives you mushrooms. That's all going to be disrupted when you're tilling the soil. So this is the main reason why we use the no dig method. So all that beneficial stuff is still underneath my feet. And these are all things that you want to encourage in the soil rather than disrupting them, because this is what makes your soil fertile and enriched. And when you have healthy soil, this is when you have healthy plants. And if you have healthy plants, they're going to be less susceptible to disease. They're going to be less susceptible to actually insects attacking the plants. It's a little bit like our immune system. If you visualize our immune system, if our immune system it's working as it should, we have a good immune system, we're going to be able to fight off disease and illness. And of course, if we have healthy soils, that means that whatever vegetables is growing is also going to have more nutrients in them. So it's quite important in today's world where there's such a deficiency in magnesium, so many vitamins and minerals like B vitamins. We're really lacking in all these things, and you'd almost wonder, is it due to the fact that there's so much industrial farming nowadays where, they're constantly stripping the topsoil, they're never giving back to the soil and back to the land? You would wonder, wouldn't you? So when you have healthy living soil where you have no disease, no insects attacking the plants, that also means that you don't need to use any chemical sprays, so you can grow organically. So that means there's no dependency on pesticides, insecticides, whatever else there is, which is much better for our health, the wildlife, and pretty much everything. So guys, I am just finishing up the last row here. As you can see, I've got some nice straight rows using the two planks there of wood, and as you can see, I'm already getting ahead of myself. I've gone ahead and planted out my tomatoes because the weather is just so beautiful. But now the next step is the pats. So these rows are about 3 foot wide. Those beds, they're about 3 foot wide, and the pats are about 2 foot wide. Some people might think that those pats are very wide. I don't think so. I'm just about able to fit a wheelbarrow in between those rows, which is what you want. And I think by the time these tomatoes and everything else grow up, they're probably going to go another foot wide. And I know I'm probably going to be like this, going sideways in between these rows. So 2 foot wide is... I wouldn't go any less than 2 foot wide, and you want to make sure that there's plenty of ventilation and plenty of wind moving in here in this tunnel. So ventilation is very, very important. Ventilation is more important than any amount of heat. So keeping the doors open and allowing that airflow is very, very important, which is why you don't want to do anything too narrow. In the meantime, while I'm waiting on my wood chips to finish the pats, I might as well start talking about something else. So a lot of you are probably wondering what is in these ton bags. What am I hiding in them? And there is something I'm hiding in them, and it's sheep wool. While I am mulching my plants with the sheep's wool, I might as well just talk a little bit about it as well, because I get so many questions all the time as to why I use it and the reasons and the pros and the cons of sheep's wool. So I might as well just talk about this as well for a little bit. Some people get a little bit confused as to how I apply it, and it's really simple. I just go around the base of the plants. I'm just going to take off some of the lower leaves of the tomatoes there. That's no harm. It needs to be done anyways. So I'm literally just going to put it around the base of the plant like that. I'm not just going to throw it on top of it. Literally just put it around the base of the plant like that, so I'm not smothering it. The reasons why I absolutely love to use sheep wool, especially indoors. I prefer to use straw mulch outdoors, but I'll explain a little bit as to why I do that. But I only experimented with this stuff last year, and when I tell you I will never be without sheep wool ever again, especially for in the tunnels. So first off, sheep wool is actually a natural insulation. It acts as a natural insulation. So what I have noticed is that in the winter time, it'll warm up the soil, and then during the summertime when there's extreme heat, especially during a really hot day, the soil temperatures will actually be a little bit cooler. And the reasons why that's a good idea is because if the soil temperature gets too hot, you could harm all those beneficial microbes and all the good stuff like the worms, the earthworms, etc. So it acts as a natural insulation. That's the first reason. The second reason is that it keeps in the moisture so well. So last year, for example, I got really spoiled with it last year. During the summer with my tomatoes last year, I think I watered them 4 times for the entire summer. That is unbelievable. So it really retains the moisture extremely well, extremely well. So that is a really big problem, especially in a polytunnel, because again, they can reach very high temperatures and the moisture is just going to leave the soil extremely quick. So when the soil dries out like that, then your plants are going to be very susceptible to things like red spider mite and all these things that thrive in a very dry conditions. I had to stop recording there because the rain was so loud. But anyways, let's move on to number 3. And this is actually one of my favorite reasons as well. Now, this only works indoors as well. So this is why I tend to use the straw outdoors rather than just wasting it outside. But when it is dry, which is why it works so good in the polytunnels, the slugs absolutely hate it. So just think about the texture of the sheep's wool. It's really dry. It's going to be really hard for the slugs to slide over the sheep's wool. So I'll give you an example. Last year I had my other greenhouse there, which is 40 foot in length, all interplanted with basil amongst the tomatoes, which is what I do every year. And when I tell you there wasn't one hole from a slug in the basil, and normally the basil just get absolutely demolished by slugs. The slugs love basil, same with lettuce and all these leafy greens. So it really works well against the slugs, but again only when it's dry. So people say, well, does it not get wet in here? Well, not really. So with the tomatoes, I'll water each individual plant rather than just getting the hose and watering the whole place. You don't want to do that for tomatoes because it's going to raise the humidity levels, and that's a big risk for blight. Sometimes that's the reason why people struggle to grow cucumbers and tomatoes in the same tunnel, because one loves humidity. Cucumbers love humidity. Any tropical plants like that love humidity, but tomatoes, they hate humidity. It's the same with potatoes. The potatoes and tomatoes are in the same family, which is why they're both susceptible to blight. The fourth reason is that it keeps away mostly your annual weeds. I'm not going to say all weeds because you have certain perennial weeds, which is a major problem for me, such as dock leaves, bindweed, horsetail, anything like that. I mean, the only way to keep those away is if you put concrete down, honest to God. So nothing is going to really stop those weeds, but it definitely does keep away all the rest of the weeds. So one less job on the list is to be constantly hoeing the place and keeping away those annual weeds. So that's the fourth reason. The fifth reason is that it's biodegradable. So it's not going to break down as fast as it would, say, outdoors, because again, the rain is going to be washing it in, and it takes about 2 years fully to biodegrade outside. It would probably take longer. Obviously, it would take longer than inside. I don't know how long it is going to take to fully break down inside because I don't have it that long. But anyways, when it does break down, it's a really rich source of nitrogen. Lastly, I'm just trying to remember all the questions that I was getting about sheep's wool, but I do remember this one, and it's that people were kind of worried about, oh, well, does it smell? Well, not really. Obviously you're not going to smell it outdoors, but indoors the fresh wool is going to smell for probably a week, 2 weeks maximum. After that it doesn't smell. So no, that is not a problem. It doesn't smell for after the 2 weeks at least. Now the last thing I'll say about sheep's wool is if you're watching from places like America or anywhere else where sheep's wool is very valuable, no doubt you were probably absolutely screaming through the screen right now at me like, what are you doing with all that sheep's wool? So unfortunately in Ireland and also the UK is the same as well. Sheep's wool is literally worth nothing. It wouldn't pay the farmer on their time or their money on diesel driving to where they need to go to get rid of the sheep's wool, because all they get is a couple of cents per piece. And yeah, it is absolutely a disgrace. But until things change in Ireland in terms of the market for sheep's wool, I think this is the best solution we have right now, is to use it in our gardens as a mulch or as a fertilizer, because farmers are going to the extent of burying it to try get rid of it. Now finally I'm going to talk a little bit about the pathways and what you can use for a pathway. The best path I've actually ever put down is a concrete path, and that was with my small 3 meter wide tunnels. So it was just one pathway, it was just one whole path of concrete, and do you know what, it was the handiest thing I ever done, because I never had to look at it again in terms of keeping it weeded, and it was very easy to keep clean. But it all comes down to a personal preference when it comes to your pathways. So you can use concrete, you can use stone, you can use slabs. I love the look of a slab walkway. You can use wood chips. Now in terms of the most beneficial pathway you can choose is definitely the wood chip pathways. It's what I've done all outside. Now the cool thing about wood chip pathways is it soaks up all the moisture, and then say if you're going through a period of drought, or if the place gets really dry, it can release that moisture. So it's a very beneficial pathway, and of course when it does break down, it gives a lot of nutrients when it's breaking down too. And finally you can just use a dirt pathway, and I'll show you how to do that now. Now this was all grass before I put down all this cardboard, and the easiest way to suppress grass and stuff like that is just keeping cardboard on the ground here for a couple of weeks, and that's what you're going to be left with then after a couple of weeks. Now I wouldn't worry about, well, is it going to get mucky and your shoes are going to be getting all muddy. No, because we're indoors here and it's going to be kept dry, so I wouldn't worry about something like that. It is a little bit damp here probably because of the cardboard, it's keeping in the moisture. But it's definitely probably one of the easiest way to create a path for yourself. So guys, I hope this video was valuable and you've taken on some information on board. But that is the basics on how to get started with your polytunnel. But thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great start to the growing season.